Set in present-day Washington, D.C., House of Cards is understandable to anyone who is remotely familiar with American politics and its inherent intrigue, however real or imagined it may be. Although House of Cards is a fictional series, it is more culturally relevant than we may at first realize. Through the depiction of the characters in the series and their personal choices, we are able to explore and analyze their values and out-expressions and compare them to those of the United States culture. The political players are primarily white, presumably wealthy, middle-aged, or older males wearing conservative dark-colored suits and married to attractive, well-maintained wives. And while the United States scores a medium 62 out of 100 on a Hofstadter's Masculinity Index, the White House is a perfect example of a masculine community. The few women that do work for the White House display fairly masculine characteristics. They are assertive, ambitious, competitive, self-assuring, and tough.
I want you to read the bill and write me a summary. Do not under any circumstances share it with anyone until we've spoken.
You don't want to go over the board first?
No,
At least...
not yet.
With a driver and bodyguard and a black glossy SUV at his disposal, House Majority Whip Frank Underwood embodies the aggregate of all lawmakers we commonly see in the front of the cameras. He's not too old, not too young, not too tall, not too short, not overly coiffed, hint of an accent, but not a hick. He's the middle of the road and relatable to nearly anyone. Over the course of the series, we can see Frank working his way up the ranks at the White House. At the universal level, Frank's fundamental concerns are the same as those of any other human being. They do not deviate much from the essential issues of food, security, power, sex, law, marriage, religion, and education. Frank's values are somewhat typical for the White House culture. He places high value on power, security achieved through power, and his marriage with Claire. Quite controversially for a White House member, which is a source of rules and laws, Frank places low value on rules.
For those of us climbing to the top of the food chain, there can be no mercy. There is but one rule: hunt or be hunted.
One of Frank's most dominant characteristics is how individualistic he is. This falls in line with the collective value of individualism in the United States, which with 91 out of 100 scores highest on Hofstadter's index. Frank's outward expressions display a low level of group attachment within his in-group at the White House, and the only person he seems to display collectivistic values towards is his wife Claire.
Yeah, go if you need to call her back.
No, she can wait. I'm talking to my wife.
Harmony is less important to Frank, which allows for some degree of speaking one's mind and confrontation.
This is the part where you leave.
The White House in itself represents a culture. At the universal level, power is a fundamental concern because human groups everywhere are organized into a hierarchy. At the collective level, each community has a different level of acceptance of power. According to Hofstadter's Collective Value Power Distance Index, the United States scores 40 points out of 100, making it a culture with low power distance, meaning that on average people do not readily accept high gaps in power.
You have to keep it down. There's an important meeting going on.
Sorry.
The White House represents a concentration of power. However, similarly to the American culture and its rank on Hofstadter's power distance scale, individuals working in the White House do not perceive there to be high gaps in power. As the main character Frank Underwood points out,
Proximity to power deludes some into believing they wield it.
Frank also states,
The president is like a lone tree in an empty field. He leans whichever way the wind is blowing.
from observing the interactions of Frank and the president, it becomes obvious that regardless of his official position, President Walker is prone to being influenced by others. Rather than the president himself, Frank and his team form the dominant culture of the White House.
If you need a punching bag, I will stand here and take the punches, as I have done time and time again since I swore my oath. But I would much rather get back to work, as you've asked me to do.
You are out of line, Frank.
Dismiss me or keep swinging, Mr. President.
You're dismissed.
Thank you, sir.
The possibility of this happening can also be attributed to the fact that the US has low power distance. Hence, power can easily shift, even in a seemingly hierarchical White House. Culture also tells us how to organize space in such a way as to control the nature of interaction. In North American corporate offices, for instance, just like at the White House, the boss is usually physically isolated in a very separate private room. Meetings with the president are held in the Oval Office, which is considered sacred and the office of the most powerful person in the world. The president's sturdy wooden desk creates a barrier between him and his visitors, providing him with a natural position of power. Typically for the North American culture, all of the conference rooms in the White House have a long rectangular or oval table stretched in the middle of the room. In line with culture's low power distance perception, the president doesn't typically sit at the end of the table. Instead, he usually occupies a position in the middle of one of the long sides for the setting to visually demonstrate democratic leadership and promote equality. Besides all the general body gestures that can be observed, there is one very unique gesture to Frank, which can be noticed throughout the series. Many times when Frank finishes speaking, he taps his ring twice to a wooden table. As he explains later in the show,
Something my father taught me. It's meant to harden your knuckles so you don't break them if you get into a fight. It also has the added benefit of knocking on wood. My father believed that success is a mixture of preparation and luck. Tapping the table kills both birds with one stone.
this symbolic gesture is an outward expression of superstition, while at the same time being an acknowledgement of the fact that luck is only a superstitious belief and cannot be relied on, which is why Frank simultaneously strengthens his knuckles. Besides signifying masculinity, it is also an outward expression of long-term time orientation. By strengthening his knuckles, Frank is constantly preparing for the possibility of a fight in the future.
Back off, Frank.
Because the only thing you're gonna get from me is come on your face.
As can be seen from the analysis of House of Cards, as a choice of popular culture, cross-cultural management theories and concepts are applicable in all parts of our lives. Looking at the world around us with a systematic mindset will not only explain many interactions, but it will also allow us to act and communicate more consciously and effectively.